Forget blankets and wool, the World War II jacket liner that rewrote cold weather survival. Cold kills faster than bullets. Every army in World War II learned that the hard way. And, buried in that lesson is one of the most overlooked pieces of survival technology ever issued to soldiers. Not a coat, not a blanket, a jacket insert, thin, light, ugly by design. And, pound for pound, it kept men warmer than wool ever could. If you care about historical gear that actually worked, lean in. This isn't trivia. This is usable knowledge. This liner wasn't designed to look good, it was designed to keep men alive. By the early years of World War II, armies were bleeding heat as fast as they were losing supplies. Wool uniforms were heavy, slow to dry, and honestly, just useless once soaked. Soldiers in Europe and the Pacific were freezing, sweating, freezing again, and even collapsing from exposure. Commanders didn't need fashion. They needed physics. The answer came in the form of a removable jacket liner built around a really simple principle. Trap air, keep it dry, keep it close to the body. The result was a pile-lined insert, often made with alpaca or synthetic pile, stitched onto a lightweight backing. It buttoned or snapped inside a shell instead of replacing it. That distinction matters. This wasn't insulation pretending to be outerwear. It was pure thermal engineering. Wool insulates by trapping air, but only when it's dry and lofted. Once it gets compressed under gear or soaked with sweat, its effectiveness drops hard. The pile liner worked differently, though. The long fibres created thousands of tiny air pockets that stayed intact even when pressed under packs or webbing. More importantly, pile didn't cling to moisture the way wool did. Sweat moved through it and condensation evaporated faster. Soldiers stayed warm without marinating in their own dampness. Field reports consistently noted that men wearing these liners could operate longer in freezing temperatures with less fatigue, less shivering, fewer cold injuries, more mobility. That's not comfort, that's survival. The genius wasn't just the liner, it was how it fit into a system. The liner sat between the body and a windproof shell. That outer layer blocked wind and precipitation. The liner handled warmth. If conditions changed, soldiers removed the liner instead of stripping down entirely. That meant less sweat build-up during movement and instant warmth when stationary. Modern outdoor gear still copies this exact setup. Soft insulation inside, hard shell outside. World War II didn't invent layering, but it perfected it under pressure. This is why soldiers stopped relying on blankets for warmth during movement. You see, a blanket doesn't really trap heat when you're marching, but a liner does. Soldiers quickly realized this wasn't just uniform gear, it was survival gear. Troops didn't wait for manuals to tell them this liner mattered. They hacked it immediately. Some wore it alone inside tents, while others slept with it wrapped around their torso. And, some even modified it with extra ties or buttons so it could be worn under captured coats or even civilian jackets. In freezing campaigns, men would trade almost anything for a spare liner. Not food, not ammo, but warmth came pretty close. That should tell you everything. This design quietly shaped modern cold-weather clothing. Fast forward to today and, well, strip away the branding. What do you see in high-end outdoor insulation? Synthetic pile, breathable loft, modular layers, moisture management over raw thickness. This jacket liner didn't just solve a wartime problem. It created a template. Fleece jackets, insulated mid-layers, and even some military cold weather systems trace their DNA straight back to this design. The materials have improved, but honestly, the principle hasn't changed at all. Trap warm air. Keep it dry. Protect it with a shell. That's the formula. Why survivalists still recreate this liner today? Modern survivalists and reenactors aren't copying this liner for nostalgia. They're copying it because it works. In cold environments where weight really matters, a pile liner offers more usable warmth per ounce than heavy wool layers. It dries faster. It works while wet. It allows movement without overheating. People who understand cold injuries know that, honestly, sweating is the enemy. This liner reduced sweat build-up better than thick wool coats ever could. That's why you still see homemade versions stitched together today using modern pile fabrics. Different era, same problem, same solution. How this knowledge applies to you right now. You don't need original World War II gear to use this. Start with the system, not the item. Your base layer should manage moisture. Your mid-layer should trap air without compressing easily. Your outer layer should block wind and precipitation. If one piece does too much, the system fails. If you camp, hike, or work in cold weather, ditch the idea that heavier means warmer. Focus on loft and breathability. A removable insulating layer lets you regulate heat without stripping down. If you're building a bug-out kit or cold weather setup, prioritize insulation that still performs when damp. Wool has its place, but pile and modern synthetics win when conditions turn ugly. If you're reenacting or collecting, understand why this liner mattered. It wasn't filler. It was a frontline solution to a deadly problem. The real lesson World War II left behind. This jacket insert proves something most people still get wrong. Survival gear doesn't need to be dramatic, it needs to be functional. The armies that learned this fastest kept their soldiers alive longer. Warmth preserved strength. Strength preserved decision-making, and decision-making won battles. That thin, forgotten liner did more to keep men alive in winter than piles of blankets ever did. That's not romantic history. That's hard-earned truth. If this kind of deep dive matters to you, if you want history that still works today, make sure you subscribe to Old World Prep. Share this with someone who still thinks thicker equals better. Drop a comment and tell us what forgotten gear you want uncovered next. Stay warm, stay sharp, and keep learning from the past, because it still knows how to keep you alive.